The Yen and the Restless spoilers for Friday, January 30th reveal that Abby Winters, Melissa Ordway will get a Dominic Winters, Ethan Ray Clark, clue while Mariah Copeland, Cameron Grimes heads for a new location. Sharon Newman, Sharon Cassies will also make a bold move. So, there'll be a lot happening on the CBS soap. For starters, Sharon will join forces with Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, as they hold Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, responsible for her role in Kane Ashby's Billy Flynn, Newman takeover. Although Sharon already doubted she could convince Phyllis to stand down, that won't stop her from blasting Phyllis for her part in all this. Nick previously gave Phyllis a stern lecture and warned that he'd grind her to dust since she refused to surrender. Now, it'll be Sharon's turn to back Nick up on that and force Phyllis to face her fierce outburst as well. Of course, Phyllis probably won't view Nick and Sharon's confrontation as anything more than a minor annoyance. It's clear that Phyllis's mind is made up when it comes to her alliance with Kane and the stolen Newman Empire. Meanwhile, Abby and Devin Winters, Brighton James, will get some stunning news. There will be some updates in the Dominic kidnapping case, so there might be a sighting of a mystery woman with a child matching his description at a nearby motel. It doesn't look like Devin and Abby will learn about Mariah's involvement just yet, but they might visit her last known location with the cops. YNR spoilers say Abby will find Dominic's mitten soon, so she'll know he's been in that motel room. By then, Mariah will already be packed up in the car with Dominic and headed somewhere else. Mariah is treating this like an elaborate game of hide-and-seek, so she'll keep hyping up their next hiding spot to Dominic as she drives. At some point, Ian Ward, Ray Wise, or at least this version of him inside Mariah's head, expects her to tell Dominic that his mom and dad don't want him anymore. Will Mariah really traumatize poor Dom by acting like Abby and Devin abandoned him? Abby's Dom clue. Mariah's new location. Sharon's bold move. The burden of proof. The pale winter sun did nothing to warm the soaring, sterile modernism of the Chancellor Winters penthouse. Abby Chancellor Abbott, wrapped in a cashmere robe the color of a bruise, stared at the sprawling cityscape below. Her reflection in the glass was a ghost of her former vibrant self, hollowed cheeks, eyes that held more shadows than light. The grand silent space, once a testament to her fairy tale, now felt like a beautifully appointed tomb. At the center of it all, in a bassinet that seemed to swallow the room with its emptiness, lay baby Dominic, cooing softly at a mobile of abstract shapes. But Abby's attention wasn't on her son. It was laser-focused on her tablet, illuminating her face with a cold blue glow. On the screen was a high-resolution photograph sent from a discreet encrypted source, a source Devin had reluctantly activated after weeks of her pleading. It was a candid shot taken from a significant distance with a powerful lens of chance at a rustic cafe in a town she didn't recognize. He was laughing, a genuine, relaxed smile she hadn't seen in months. And he was not alone. Seated across from him was a woman. Dark hair, warm eyes, her body language, an open book of easy familiarity. They weren't touching, but the space between them crackled with an intangible connection. The caption supplied by the investigator was clinical. Subject appears in repeated informal meetings with Dr. Amelia Sorensen, trauma specialist. Location: Mill Creek, approximate 85 miles northeast. A trauma specialist, Abby whispered, the words like shards of glass in her dry throat. This was the clue, the monumental, devastating clue. It wasn't another woman in the romantic sense. It was the woman helping him dismantle the trauma she had caused. The international incident in Portugal, the PTSD he suffered to save her, the slow, painful unraveling of their marriage upon their return to Genoa City. It had all been a boulder on their backs. In seeking help to heal his own scars, he had stepped into a world where she could not or would not follow. Her clue wasn't to an affair. It was to his conscious, deliberate journey away from her. Tears, hot and shame-filled, blurred the image. The relief that it wasn't infidelity was instantly annihilated by a deeper, more profound terror. How do you fight for a man who is learning to live without the very memories that bind you together? A soft knock at the door made her jump. Devin, looking as weary as she felt, let himself in. "You've seen it," he stated, his voice gentle but firm. "He's trying to erase us," Abby choked out, gesturing wildly at the tablet. "Not me, not Dom. Thus, that includes the pain. But you can't surgically remove the pain without cutting away everything that grew around it." Devon approached, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Abs. He's trying to save himself. That photo doesn't show him abandoning you. It shows him trying to become whole again. Maybe whole enough to come back. And what if he comes back a man who doesn't need me? What if that version of Chance looks at this life at me and sees just another trigger?" Her voice broke. She looked over at Dominic, his little fists waving in the air. "He's missing everything. And I'm here drowning in guilt and designer furniture with a clue that feels like a goodbye note." Devon followed her gaze to the baby. "He's not missing this. You're here. You're his constant. That has to be enough for now. This clue, use it not as a weapon but as a compass. You now know where he is mentally. The question is, what are you going to build here for Dom and for yourself while he's on that journey?" His words were a lifeline and a challenge. Abby wiped her eyes, a flicker of her old resolve cutting through the despair. The clue was a map to Chance's pain. Her next move couldn't be to storm the castle. It had to be to fortify her own a place called peace. 70 miles away in the sleepy, picturesque town of Mill Creek, Mariah Copeland sat on a wrought iron bench in the town square, breathing an air that smelled of pine and baked bread, not anxiety and ambition. Dressed in simple jeans and a cozy sweater, her hair in a casual ponytail, she was almost unrecognizable from the powerhouse media maven of Genoa City. Here she wasn't a Newman, an Abbott, or a Chancellor affiliate. She was just Mariah. Her new location was a rented cottage on the edge of a frost-kissed wood with a view of a frozen lake. It had a porch for morning coffee, a fireplace for evening contemplation, and a profound echoing quiet that was slowly stitching her frayed soul back together. The chaos of the city, the corporate battles, the familiar landmines, the constant pressure to be someone's savior or someone's rival felt like a distant, feverish dream. She was here on a grant from the Faney Project, *, a non-profit supporting women in media, taking sabbaticals for mental health and creative rejuvenation. Her proposal had been simple to write. Not press releases, not crisis management statements, but a series of essays on identity, motherhood, and finding one's voice outside the echoing chambers of legacy. It was terrifying in its honesty. Her phone buzzed on the bench beside her. A text from Sharon. "Thinking of you. Genoa City is too quiet without your lightning. All is evolving. XX." Mariah smiled. A genuine, unburdened smile. She typed back, "The quiet here is my favorite part. Lightning's on sabbatical. She's learning to be a gentle rain. Thank you for holding the space. Love to Faith." As she hit send, she watched a man and a woman exit the cozy cafe across the square. The man was tall with a military bearing even in civilian clothes, his smile tentative but real. Chance. The woman with him, Dr. Sorensen, gave him a reassuring nod before heading toward a bookshop. Chance lingered for a moment, looking up at the clear winter sky, as if seeing it for the first time. Mariah's journalist instincts, now quieted to a gentle observer's curiosity, noted the solitary figure. She didn't know his full story, but she recognized the look of someone navigating the delicate archaeology of their own psyche. She respected his space just as she was fiercely protective of her own. This new location was more than geography. It was a state of being. For the first time since the whirlwind of motherhood, career, and family drama, Mariah was listening to her own heartbeat, and it was telling a story she was eager to write. The roses have thorns. Back in Genoa City, the Crimson Light's loft buzzed with a different, more volatile energy. Sharon Collins, a vision of determined serenity in a deep emerald dress, was putting the final touches on a display. But these weren't her usual pastries and coffee cakes. Laid out on the reclaimed wood counter were stacks of brochures, sign-up sheets, and a sleek laptop open to a professional website. New Horizons, a Sharon Collins initiative. Subtitle: Wellness, Advocacy, and Second Acts for Women in Transition. This was Sharon's bold move. Not a takeover, not a romantic scheme, but a declaration of purpose. Using a significant portion of her savings and a quiet strategic investment from Nick, who couldn't say no to her when she had that fiery glint in her eyes, she was launching a full-fledged nonprofit. It would offer career counseling, mental health resource navigation, support groups, and even small business grants for women overcoming addiction, leaving abusive situations, or simply rebuilding after life seismic shifts. It was personal. It was her history, her struggles with bipolar disorder, her survival transformed into a lighthouse for others. The bell above the door jangled. Phyllis Summers walked in, her expression a masterpiece of skeptical curiosity. Sharon. The text said important venture. It didn't say revolution. Maybe it's both. Sharon said, her smile warm but unwavering. Coffee. I also have formational packets. Phyllis picked up a brochure, her eyes scanning the text. New Horizons. Ambitious, and you're basing this here in the den of caffeine and intrigue where better. Sharon countered, gesturing around the space that had been the backdrop for so much of the city's drama. This is neutral territory. It's a place of community, and it's mine. I'm not asking for a seat at the corporate table. I'm building my own table. Phyllis, despite herself, was intrigued. She saw the shrewdness behind the compassion. This wasn't just charity. It was a power play of a different kind, establishing Sharon as a pillar of the community in her own right, independent of the Newman men or the Abbott dynasty. You'll need Buzz controversy. A patron saint with deep pockets and a redemption arc. I have Nick support. And I'm talking to Lily about Chancellor Winters being a founding partner. It's about ethical capital, Sharon explained, her voice gaining passionate momentum. But my first official act is tonight. I'm hosting a private dinner for Diane, Ashley, and Nikki. Phyllis almost choked on the air. The three Furies under one roof with you as mediator. Sharon, that's not bold. That's a suicide bombing of social politics. That's exactly why it has to happen, Sharon said, her eyes gleaming. The feud between Jabot and Newman, the personal wars, it's poisoning the water for everyone. These are three of the most powerful, experienced women in the city. Imagine if they channeled a fraction of that energy into something like this. She tapped the brochure. I'm not naive. I know it could explode in my face, but if there's even a chance to broker a ceasefire, to find a sliver of common ground for a cause that matters, isn't that a move worth making? Phyllis studied her longtime frenemy, a grudging respect dawning. Sharon was no longer just surviving the storms of Genoa City. She was trying to calm the seas for everyone else. It was either brilliant or disastrous. In Genoa City, it was usually both. Crossroads and convergences. As the winter afternoon faded into an indigo evening, the threads of these separate lives began to vibrate with unseen connections. At the GCAC, Nikki Newman nursed a vodka martini, her posture rigid. The invitation from Sharon was on her phone. An opportunity to redefine legacy. It read, Nikki, battling her own demons and watching Victoria harden into a ruler she barely recognized, felt a strange pull. Her legacy was more than stock prices. It was survival. Could that survival have purpose beyond the boardroom? In the Jabot conference room, Ashley Abbott stared at the same invitation, her mind a tempest of merger anxieties and personal betrayals. The fight with Tucker was consuming, but this was different. A project led by Sharon of all people, a woman who understood chaos. Ashley, feeling isolated and strategically outmaneuvered by Jack and Billy, saw a potential ally or a useful diversion. At Newman Ranch, Diane Jenkins sat by the fireplace, the invitation filling her with a complex mix of dread and yearning. She had fought tooth and nail for her place for her family, but acceptance still eluded her. Perhaps contributing to a venture like Sharon's one built on authenticity and aid could be a new kind of armor. A way to be Diane, not just Jack's wife or Kyle's mother. In Mill Creek, Mariah lit a candle in her cottage. The words for her first essay finally flowing. She wrote about the sound of real silence. She wrote about the gift of being unknown. She wrote without naming him about the wounded soldier she saw in the square and the quiet courage of his recovery. Her new location was giving her the one thing Genoa City never could: perspective. And in the Chancellor penthouse, Abby finally rose from her vigil. She picked up Dominic, holding him close, breathing in his sweet, milky scent. She walked to the tablet one last time, looked at the photo of Chance, and then decisively closed the cover. "Okay," she said aloud to her son, to the empty room to herself. "Okay." She carried Dom to a side table where a portfolio for a proposed boutique family-friendly bistro had been gathering dust. She opened it. Then she opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she hadn't dialed in too long. Lily Winters. If Chance was on a path to healing his trauma, she would build a future so vibrant, so full of love and life that he would have a home to return to, not just a memory to flee from. Abby's clue had shown her the battlefield. Now she would arm herself not with weapons, but with creation. The calm before the back room was transformed. Soft lighting, a round table set for 4, with simple elegance. Sharon took a deep breath, checking the time. Any minute now. Her phone lit up with a text from Nick. "You've got this. Cheese. Proud of you. Backup is on standby if it turns into a knife fight." She smiled. Her bold move was in motion. Across town, Abby was sketching menu ideas. A new fire in her eyes. In a quiet cottage, Mariah typed the title of her essay, "Where I Am," and in a small-town cafe, Chancellor paid his bill and, for the first time in months, didn't feel the immediate crushing urge to run further. He simply felt present. Friday, January 30th in Genoa City and beyond was not a day of explosive confrontations or shocking revelations. It was a day of profound personal turning points. Clues were interpreted not as endings, but as directions. New locations were claimed not as hideouts, but as sanctuaries. Bold moves were made not for conquest, but for connection. The game hadn't changed, but the players slowly and surely were beginning to rewrite the rules. The drama continues. Will Sharon's high-stakes dinner forge an alliance or ignite a new war? Can Abby's new vision compete with the ghost of her old marriage? What will Mariah discover in the silence of Mill Creek? And when Chance's path to healing eventually leads him home, what home will he find? The young and the restless spoilers say Mariah will continue to make terrible decisions. So stay tuned for all the DOM mayhem that's still to come.